Hey everyone, I'm Tim.
And I'm the only Luddite in the Ozen world, Chris.
And welcome to the Ocean Output.
The other way, which is not how I hear.
Yeah, and you do hear like that.
All right.
Everybody does.
Great. Like I can still hear, like I can hear it here better than like.
It's not the same.
It feels the
It,
same.
it's not the same.
It
It should.
feels-
I don't know. Maybe I just have so much tinnitus that.
I mean, yeah. I got horrific tinnitus. It's like there's always a ringing going on, and like apparently silence like doesn't have a sound.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that.
Same thing for me. I went to the audiologist on Thursday.
Yep.
And she was like, "Do you have tinnitus?" And I was like, "Oh, all the time." I was like, if there's any quiet, like it's deafening." And she
Yeah.
laughed, and I was like, "I'm serious. Like I have to have white noise." But anyways,
Yeah.
episode 9. Almost said 8. I'm always one episode behind.
Well, I mean, 9 comes after 8, so you were just counting up.
That's the way I have to do it. I can never just say 100. I have to do all 99 numbers before that.
That's true. Like, yeah. 101's a whole different story.
So, first day of June.
Are we there? Man, we're like halfway through the year, dude. It's been a long year,
Month
man.
6. Released 13 total episodes, which is pretty cool now. This will be 13. And then I got a couple more interviews on the table, hopefully.
Oh, I'm excited.
But we don't want to ruin a surprise for any of our listeners. But they're going to be pretty good ones.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Because we're going to focus on, for the next year, we're going to focus on privacy and then investigations in the, I guess, dark side of the community, right? Now that we talked about the dark side, you want to get into
Oh yeah,
yeah.
let's get into the news.
yeah,
All right,
so
if you guys have a mobile device or a browser readily available, you can go to StarWarsWeb.net and then see where that takes you, because it doesn't take you to a Star Wars fan website like it used to.
does not take you to a forum anymore. It now redirects you to the official website of the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States. So if it was actually a pretty big story at least through my news feeds, right? It started popping up everywhere, and
Yeah.
I know it was a big talked about story throughout.
PC Gamer did a story on it too. Like everyone on the tech side, I think, is out there throwing stuff. 404 Media did one.
Recorded did one. Hacker News
Yeah.
did one.
Yeah.
So and what we're talking about is there was a forum website, a fan fiction website, essentially.
StarWarsWeb.net.
And when you went to it, it looked like it was run by a bunch of hobbyists. However, it was found out, it was discovered, a lot of researchers, and it was then published, found it was run by the CIA.
Did they figure that out because they had a fan page for Jar Jar Binks?
Miso on the internet. But I actually, Chris, you did more research into it than I did, because I did more research for the content for today's episode. So what did you find out when it came to that?
All right, so this one dude, Ciro, and I'm gonna mispronounce his name. It's like Ciro Santilli. Yeah, Ciro Santilli. Did a bunch of research into this. I mean, he wasn't the only one. But what he did was some extensive website fingerprinting, and he just discovered all these similarities. So 10 websites were named. I know Citizen Labs was involved. They identified, I think, 885 websites that fit the description of clandestine CIA communication forums for interaction with foreign agents. Yeah, we'll say it that way. One of the things that they found, other than like some of the simple stuff, like all the headers look the same, a lot of the websites were constructed in the exact same format. They had very few tabs. A ton of external links they used block IPs. So there are a lot of the websites had all of their IPs within like 30 of each other, which was pretty interesting. And then some of the other similarities where, there was some sort of communication nexus on there. A lot of it were hobbyist type websites like Star Wars. There were a lot of sporting websites. There were some Russian fighting websites that were also part of this divulgence of everything that kind of fit the same profile. They're not saying that every website is the CIA, clandestine communication website. It's just, 10 were identified publicly. 885 were also identified that fit the same scheme.
And if it, from that perspective, when you're looking at websites and you fingerprinted them, or at least understood the fingerprint of them, if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But you still want to go and inspect it a little bit more. And, when it comes to that type of methodology, all that information is something you can uncover for other websites as well. For instance, like the headers that you get back, you can find vulnerabilities in those, like the cookies and stuff. So it's really interesting. One of the other ways that I've saw other nation states, they would use gaming platforms.
So there were also a lot of gaming websites.
Like Xbox and PlayStation and those.
Yeah. There were a few porn websites as well. They were just enthusiast sites, right?
And when you sit there and you say, like, all these things look similar, what this makes me believe is they hired like 1, 2, or 3 website designers and people to configure the hosting solutions for all of these, and may not have told them exactly what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
Or
that's a good
if
point.
they were employed by the CIA, of course they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
But when you have the exact same person setting up a server config or designing a website, that person's natural tendency is to do everything the same, so it's easy.
Yeah.
So that's where all this fingerprinting really helps
So
you
you
out.
don't have to rewrite all the code. Everything just refers to the same stuff.
That's why website creators like WordPress, Wix, that's how they came about, because you can easily identify who sets up what website by the way they do things over and over again.
Yeah. So my uncle just retired from his job, and now he has like a small side business, this little online store thing. And he sent me the link, and I looked at the website. I was like, "Oh, you use this to create your website just by looking at it." And he's like, "How did you know that, man?"
It also, for any website that's created with WordPress or Wix, if you have any credentials for those, it prompts you to log in to create another website every single time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's something I didn't know until I started using it. And also, I sent my website to my buddy, and he gave me he sent me back a screenshot, and he's like, "I use WordPress too." He had it as well. So yeah, it's really easy to discover stuff like that. And WordPress has 1 innate vulnerability when it comes to websites. It's that if you have their WordPress admin login, you can go in and deface their websites. And some people don't take the appropriate security measures to hide those credentials,
Yeah.
or at least make them very difficult to guess. But what else, man, about Star Wars web?
Yeah. So I will say that this investigation by Ciro Santilli is still ongoing. Like, he's still actively going through as much stuff as he can. And he's also asked for user feedback or watcher feedback to help provide additional information, because he's gone through a lot of this stuff. A lot of what he's gone through is out on GitHub, and then he has his own website that he released all this stuff on.
Yeah, ourbigbook.com/Ciro Santilli/CIA 2010 covert communications websites.
He lays out the entire methodology that he used to identify different sites, and even one of the things I love about what he put out there was the errors that he found in his own research and his own methodology. He's like, "Hey, I tried this and it just didn't work. So then I switched to this process, and this is where I started to find positive results."
Yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure that link is down below in the description, so be sure to check that out. But really cool. Like, this is some of the things that, when you're in the military and working for the government, you're like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." When everybody else discovers it, you're like, "Crap."
Well, so it did lead to the death of a lot of people.
Mm.
Once, I think it was Iran originally exposed some of this stuff, and then China got a hold of it, and China, put put the kibosh down on quite a few foreign agents in their nation.
All right. But yeah, guys, definitely. When you do go to that website, StarWarsWeb.net, it'll be a bad redirect. It's going to say this doesn't support an HTTPS connection. And if you know anything about online investigations, making sure you're secure, you should never continue on to an HTTP website unless you're certain of the content. We're letting you know that you can press continue on your browser. And if you're still concerned about it, you can open up a private browser.
Or you can go to the Wayback Machine and see what the website looked like in its heyday.
Yeah, archive.org, and then type it in the Wayback Machine at the top. Awesome.
All right, so Tim is really excited about today's episode. He's even wearing a shirt that's got some weird connections and some onions on there. So what
I'm
are we
happy-
talking about today, Tim?
I'm happy you recognize it. And when he came in today, he said, I feel really unprepared for an episode because he does do, I will say, a lot more background research than I do for a lot of our topics. And this is one of those ones where you can't do that because it's dark web content.
Yeah, I mean you can, but you need the
don't know-
time
you
and
don't
you
know
got to
where to
get
look
on
for it.
there and you got to get on there and play around.
Yeah, so there's not really a whole lot of ways to discover this content unless you're going through other content creators, like other researchers that are in the dark web, so they can give you verified start point, because that's a really hard part, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're mostly going to focus on Tor for this episode. I might have a spattering of other darknets that you can use as well, but again, Tor is the most popular one. I would say that probably over 95% of the content, maybe more than that's classified as dark web, goes through the Tor networking protocol.
I'm going to put out the big subject line for what we're talking about today. We're talking about start points on the dark web for OSINT investigators, or for anyone who just wants to explore.
Yeah, I will say that. There's this large misnomer that going on the dark web instantly exposes you to illegal content or imagery that you don't want to see. And I gotta be honest, you have to intentionally find places to look for that. And the ones that I'm going to give you today, they will not automatically redirect you there.
But they can get you there.
Yeah, you'll have to intentionally go looking for that information. But with that being said, specific starting points that get everybody going are link directories.
Oh, yes.
So normally how you find a website if you want to look for a topic is you go to your favorite search engine, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to look for CIA conspiracy theories, you just type that in Google, and then you get all these websites back that have those tags for that content.
If I'm looking up conspiracy theories, I'm going into like incognito and DuckDuckGo.
And three of the most popular link directories that I've heard about, one that I'm really going to caution everyone against when I get to it. But the first one is the one that I like to use because it's been around for a long while. It's really trusted in the community, is tor.taxi, tor.taxi. And it does look like one of those websites that was created circa 1995 and has never been updated.
I mean, you see a fair amount of that on the dark web.
Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of the people that get their start in the dark web, and I've mentioned this in almost all of my trainings and talks that I have, is I don't believe when you're 3, 4, 5 years old, you're going to believe that you're going to be on the dark web selling stuff or buying stuff when you're like 16, 17 years old. Right? So it's kind of something that you find yourself going into.
I mean, you don't have to do that. You can, but you don't have to.
Yeah. But most of the content, I would probably say over 40 to 50% of the content that is linked to or is found on the dark web leads back to a place where you can buy goods or services. Like almost everything I've found, whether that's drugs, services, illegal activities such as child sexual abuse material, you usually find a link to go back to that.
Rhinoceros horns.
So that whole investigation for me, because I actually did conduct an investigation into illegal animal trade, exotic animal trade. And while ivory is found on there, it isn't sold on a lot of the popular darknet marketplaces. So yes, it is popular to find that. But searching for our rhinoceros horn or ivory or any connotation of a, I guess, animal paraphernalia, I guess, it always goes back to the name of a drug.
You know what they don't sell enough of is narwhal horn. Like you hear of powdered rhinoceros, you never hear of narwhal horn coming up in the black market. Like I imagine they're hard to get to, which I mean should drive the price up. So if we have any entrepreneurs out there, don't do that. However, it'd be interesting to
You
see.
probably have at least one buyer right now, I think.
Someone's out there looking for that narwhal.
He wants to make it into a sword. But no, definitely for exotic animals, leave them alone. If it's in nature, just don't touch it in general. There's a subreddit called What Is This Thing? And people will just go and pick up stuff on the ground and hold it in their hands for Reddit to answer.
That's a terrible idea.
It is. And I saw it was like last year or the year before, this one woman was in Australia and picked up a blue-ringed octopus. One of the most toxic creatures on this planet that has enough venom to kill like 10 or 15 humans. And she's just like, "Oh, look, it's so pretty." And like if you see the blue rings, it's pissed off. It's upset.
Yeah. Bright colors in nature either means you're toxic or poisonous, venomous, whatever, or you're a fairly attractive male bird. That's it. Those are the only two things.
And for me, I don't want to be around any one of those or ingest anything from any one of those things. So, but anyways, going back to
be kind to nature, y'all.
Yeah, exactly, and respect it too, because if you ever go into nature, it will not be nice to you back. It never has for me. But Toro.taxi, one of my favorite ones. Another one that is really, really popular in the community right now because of the administrator is Daunt.link, DAUNT.LINK. And the reason why I bring up these two link directories specifically is because all the links that are on these websites are signed by the admins of the websites, which means that all of these links.
So they're mostly active then too.
Depends for sure, because they do get DDoS, and exit scams do occur by even verified links. But they use pretty good privacy to sign all the links, so it comes from the original creator. So if you have the public key, you can verify it.
That was a good way to slip in PGP on the folks.
There's no way that you can talk about the dark web at this point without understanding pretty good privacy, at least to a nascent degree, and knowing those terms.
I mean, normally we introduce the acronym first, so that was a good way to do it backwards.
Oh yeah, I mean, if they listen to all our episodes, which everyone should, go back to episode 1.
They already knew it. They already
know what it is. And then there's this other popular link directory. Oh, excuse me, Daunt.link, by the way, created by Hugbunner. He is a well-known figure within the dark web community. Well, when I say he, I'm not sure if it's a he or not.
This individual is well
exactly. But they got their start on Reddit back in the day. And Hugbunner, if you guys think about the name, it's for Bug Hunter, right? A moniker for that. And he was talking about all these dark web hidden services, especially marketplaces that were operating and they had vulnerabilities on their websites, and he was just calling them out. And they weren't being nice about it either.
Yeah.
And anyways, Reddit took a really strong stance in 2017 towards that type of content and went and shut down a bunch of those communities. I think even removed some profiles that were actively doing as well. So Hugbunner said, "Hey, I'm just going to set up my own website, and I'm going to call it Dread, and it looks like Reddit."
Oh, there you go. Problem solved.
But anyways, that's why Daunt.link is trusted and really popular in the community, because Hugbunner is a trusted individual, which is something that is really crucial for operating on the dark web. You have to establish a reputation, presence, have appropriate OPSEC, and understand the culture before you can ever be heavily involved in it. And that includes being a researcher as well. Like you just can't, all of a sudden pop up and said, "I'm a dark web expert," because everybody's going to call you out. They're going to start asking you questions. Even for me, right? When I train classes that have been on the dark web for years, they could tell that I was still somewhat of a noob when it came to this stuff. Now, the third link directory, which I hear mentioned a lot, is Hidden Wiki. Now, if you Google Hidden Wiki, it does come up with a link directory, and it does have onion links. So everybody's tracking, if you want to go to a Tor website, it's 56 alphanumeric characters, jumbled letters. Sometimes it has a vanity URL with like the name of the website up front. Like, for example, if you want to go, CIA does run an onion website, and at the beginning of it, it says CIA.gov.
I think there's a Facebook one too.
I think Facebook does have an Onion website.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reddit does as well. There's a
Yep.
lot of social media websites that has a website on
Yeah.
Tor.
Dot Onion.
Mhm. But Hidden Wiki, I will say be very, very careful of this one because there are several that have taken that name, right? Hidden Wiki, and then they copy the website and change those onion links. So they're no longer
Oh.
going to the verified websites. They're going to falsified mirrors of those
Oh,
websites.
interesting.
And that's really, really common on the dark web where you'll find that there are links that can go to the same place, and there's a lot of them, but all of those may not be by the creators of the actual website.
So, what precautions should you take to protect yourself before you get out there?
You can never know exactly where you're going when you just have a long alphanumeric string of characters.
Yep.
So the first one I will always say for anyone operating on the dark web is you have to have some type of mental fortitude. So you have to understand that things that you're going to see, and especially words that you're going to read, it's not what you would probably say in, I guess, polite company is the
Yeah.
best way to put it. So, first of all, that. And then secondly,
So, if you're around Tim or I, talk away. We're good.
yeah, I would say that Chris and I mostly have mental fortitude. And then, especially when it comes to these links, you have to get into the community and read what they're saying. And if you want to, maybe get involved, depending on the level that you want to be involved. And that's a big one. The level that you want to be involved in. I will say I will never vouch for nor sponsor any illegal content or activity that occurs in the dark web, but it is best to understand that culture, especially if you're going to try to research it. So understanding behaviors, especially criminal, is really crucial for understanding dark web content activity. Hidden Wiki, watch out for it. All right. Now this next question we'll pose to Chris. Guess he
Alright.
knows the answer to this. I've talked about it more than once. What's my favorite search engine on the dark web?
Is it Amia?
It is. Do you know the URL for it?
Oh God, I used to because I actually have it written down in my notebook next to my isolated computer that I use for investigations.
I know it's not air gap because I've talked to you on it. But yeah, Amia, great resource. The reason why I love Amia so much is because the people that maintain it actually review the links that are submitted, because I won't say it's like a true search engine where it goes and indexes the content and then crawls it.
Yeah,
It
no,
just
it's-
indexes it and takes it in.
Yeah, it's I find it to feel more like a catalog.
It is, yeah. But it does not only take in the URL and the description that's provided from the person who submits it, whomever that may be, or if they find it themselves, it actually indexes content from the HTML as well to
Yeah.
search, which is great. The reason why I like it is those researchers will go out and actively remove any CSAM content or other content that may be harmful. So, for example, if there's a website that heavily vouches for anything not centered around harm reduction, they do take that into account. And harm reduction is a term that you'll see on the dark web all the time because people on the dark web, they're true libertarians. Like, they believe that there should be no government involvement in anything, not just the internet,
Yeah.
not just in your house, but I won't say they believe in true anarchy because they do believe in a society that does help kind of police each other. But I know there's a lot of people out there on the dark web that believe anarchy is the one true government form. But yeah, Mia is great about removing all those. I personally, not to say that anybody else hasn't experienced it, but I personally have never clicked on a result from Amia and then been directed to content that I never ever want to see. So
Yeah,
it
I
says
haven't
child
either.
sex
I
abuse
have-
material.
I've clicked on something that it was a link and then a description, and then it took me to a place to hire Russian hitmen, and I was like, that's not what I was looking for at all. But let's see what they're offering, just to see what services you could find.
And also, there's never, I don't think there's ever
Yeah,
been
I
a
didn't-
confirmed case. This is the biggest thing, right? There's never been a confirmed case of someone hiring a hitman off the dark web. And the reason why I say it like that is there's probably someone who's really good at their job that's never been caught.
Yeah, no, I'm sure, but like you're not getting them on there. You're getting them through it's a friend referral system at that point.
Yeah, if I became a billionaire, I could probably find out
Yeah,
what those
that's true.
what
Yeah,
those services are.
when the rules no longer apply.
But Amiya is great for that. Amiya.fi is the
Oh, that's what it is.
yeah.
In my head, I was thinking lo-fi, and I was like, that's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, lo-fi music. Love like jam into that while I'm trying to focus. Now the next search engine I like to use, and this one will take you to links that you probably don't want to see or content you may not want to view for an investigation, but it's a great dark web resource, been around for years. It's Tor66, which if you think about the name Tor66, it's Route 66 on Tor.
Yeah, there it
So
is.
that's where the name comes from. And if you want to find that one for that specific search engine, that does take a little bit of digging because none of the link directories I know of right now really have that available. But there are some out there. For example, I know Dark Web Daily has one that's run by Sam Bent, who is formerly known as a darknet vendor. Not anymore. At least if he is being a darknet vendor again, he's not telling anyone, which I don't believe he is. He has such a huge social media presence now. It's not funny. And then there's also another cybersecurity researcher that focuses on dark web content called Dark Web Informer. They run a website that's kind of like a down detector for popular dark websites.
Oh,
It could
nice.
be on there as well. But you can Google both their names. You can Google Sam Bent or Doing Fed Time, or you can just look up Dark Web Informer and you'll see their Twitter, you'll see their LinkedIn posts, and they have I think they do have a YouTube presence as well. I know Sam Bent does for sure.
All right, before we get to the next portion of this, so we talked about how to prepare yourself mentally when getting out onto the dark web. What are some of the things that we could do to protect our devices before we get there?
So, looking on content on the dark web is not so dissimilar from looking at content through a regular browser. You just put the website in the URL bar. Again, it's not going to look like a traditional website. And then if it's available, you'll get directed to it. Now, after that point is where you can run into some trouble. First off, a lot of the content requires you to log in, especially if you want to communicate. So don't use credentials that can link back to your real world identity. That's a really big one. So if you have any usernames, emails that you've used on other platforms, don't ever use those on dark web content.
No personal information out there.
This includes reusing passwords. It just as a common OPSEC practice anyways, y'all, never reuse your passwords.
You mean 1, 2, 3, 4 isn't well, I guess now they changed the character requirement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
Yeah.
is no longer acceptable.
Yeah, password 1, 2, 3, I love my mother. I've actually seen that as a common password as well, stuff like that. But if you guys are thinking about password complexity requirements, phrases with random words are the best. So something like buzz, garage, flower, poster. And then you put numbers after that. That actually is a complex password when you include spaces. And I will say this, if a website allows you to put spaces or commas in your password, from a cybersecurity researcher perspective, we hate that crap. Because guess what we use to look at a lot of data?
Yeah.
CSVs.
Yeah.
And what does a comma separated value sheet do?
Yeah.
It cuts
Separates
that. It cuts it. So then you have to go in and put all those together. So again, from one cybersecurity researcher to another, like spaces and commas, I hate seeing those in CSVs.
My complex password includes I love Tim's mom.
I can't wait for to listen to this episode. And then also protecting your machine, going down that rabbit hole again as well, and to a certain extent your identity, because everything on your devices now are linked back to you. It could be good to use a virtual machine if you're going to be downloading content from the dark web. Again, just going and looking, essentially look but no touch, just like in nature, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for the dark web if you don't know what you're doing, because you can download a file, even a PDF. You think something as benign as a PDF isn't going to your computer.
They're pumping out code in those things now too, man.
Exactly. And there could be URLs that redirect you somewhere else on those PDFs. Just from an OSINT perspective, if you ever provide someone with a PDF, number one, scan it for malware if you didn't generate it, and then also remove any clickable link from that, y'all.
Be careful with your mobile device, because a lot of them are set to that auto download if you click on a PDF.
Yes, exactly. So only download information and content from trusted sources. And then further on, going down there as well, talking about personal information, continuing, you will never know who you're talking to on the other end of the internets, wherever that may be. So if you're going to share content, again, make sure you're protecting your identity, because it's something you should try to never give away on the dark web. And then also, if they want to set up a connection with you, understand how you need to set that connection up, because there is a way to talk directly to the person over dark web connections. So especially when we get to one part of today's talk, which is internet relay chat, that's a plain text connection that's not encrypted. So again, be careful about that as well.
It's another set of chats. It looks like it was set up in the early 1980s.
The interfaces have gotten prettier. I will say that. But there's actually design going into them.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, so let's talk about forums. Let's talk about your favorite one.
Everyone's favorite one on the dark web is Dread. I think sometimes it may get a lot of hate.
Are there any judges on Dread?
Moderators for sure.
Yes.
So I guess
never mind. Go ahead.
no, you can.
No, I don't want to derail it. Let's go. Let's talk about important stuff.
But Dread, it is. I will say it says it's the front page of the dark web when you go to it, very similar to how Reddit says it's the front page of the internet. And I do kind of agree with that, because a lot of conversations about things that occur in dark web circles takes place there. So for example, I know for a fact if I went on Dread right now, there is a thread somewhere in one of the communities, and they're called subdreads. So you guys see the common theme going, subreddit, subdreads. There is probably a community out there like OPSEC or hacking, or even one of their biggest ones for just off topic. It's called Cafe Dread, where they are talking about today's news story.
StarWarsWeb.net.
Yeah, I'm talking about that. So again, Dread is a great community to initially get started in understanding the culture for the dark web.
Just to backtrack just a little bit, there were an abnormal number of golfing websites that the CIA used, because apparently that's a real big thing. So they just had a ton of golfing enthusiast websites. Anyways, go ahead. Continue.
That's great. Now, the next one, I guess, can be kind of considered like a forum, but it's more like a microblogging service, because it has the same interface as Twitter as Pitch. Pitch came online about, I think, 2 years ago now, and it initially started attracting quite a large following. They didn't make really any OPSEC errors when setting up their websites, because that's another big thing about communities on the dark web. They instantly start prodding these new websites when they come up to see if there are any vulnerabilities or any issues with them. So there's some really popular, well-followed profiles on Dread where that's just what they do every single day. Like Code is Law is really popular, and also the other admin for Dread who assists in maintaining the website.
The other judge.
Is Paris, and they also do that as well. I can't wait for them to bring their search engine back online. It's called Recon. I haven't checked in the last week because I've been focused on social media collection where I got a new job, but I can't wait for that one to come online. But Pitch is great. Again, it looks, if you've been on Twitter, you can use Pitch. It's just you have to go on the dark web to use it. And it's got quite a strong following now. I think they have over thousands of users. So it's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's blowing up there.
Yeah. How many of those are sock puppets or fake accounts?
I have I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. So, but those two websites, Dread and Pitch, again, if you go to tor.taxi or .link, you can get to both those websites really easy.
All right. So Pitch, kind of a social media, or just because it mirrors Twitter a little bit, that microblogging site. So that leads us into what kind of social media sites can we run into that we as brand new dark web users can go to without fear?
So these next few, so I would say I would categorize to a certain extent that both Dread and Pitch is social media on the dark web. I would argue that 100%.
I mean, I think there's a lot of that exists that doesn't necessarily call itself social media, but it is.
Yeah, so these next few is, they're proxies to ClearNet social media content.
Okay.
So one of the things that you run into overseas, especially if you're in areas where this content is denied, such as Russia, China, Iran, and to a certain extent, if you actually live on the border and somehow have an internet connection, which is really rare in North Korea, right? There are social media proxies on the dark web to get to that. So there's LibReddit, which is a really popular proxy. So this website is not run by Reddit. They get all the content and then mirror it on this dark website. So LibReddit, and the next one, which
This one's my favorite.
yeah, and it's the way that Twitter adjusted their API makes it almost unusable at certain points, but you still can get some content back. It's called Knitter, and they
Yeah.
also have a ClearNet proxy as well, Knitter.io.
There's also, it used to be knitter.it as well.
Yeah, and if you want to check out any one of these websites, so LibReddit, Knitter, and the next one is Invidious. All of these have major GitHub repositories where they have all the proxied websites that they're running where they're listed on there. So definitely check out if you guys are getting into OSINT, one of the best ways to start learning about new resources is
GitHub, man.
go site:/github.com, GITHUB.com, and then whatever content you're searching for. If you're looking for a social media harvester or Instagram searcher, if you're looking for how to download YouTube videos, that's your next search. Put that in there as keywords, and then I guarantee there's somebody that has a repository on GitHub where you can either start running your own tool or learn how to build your own tool on there as well. And then the last one for social media proxies is called Invidious, and this is a YouTube proxy. So,
Oh, okay.
and it
See, I
actually,
didn't know Invidious. I knew Knitter and LibReddit. I didn't know this one.
yeah, Invidious, and it is great because I don't know how many times this happens to you, Chris, but you ever go to a video and it wants you to log in to view it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, not all the time. 60% of the time it works every time. Invidious lets you get around that login restriction,
Oh,
and you can
nice.
watch those.
Yeah. I refuse to log into stuff when I'm doing investigation.
Yes, I'd rather do something free. And that mentality you get out of once you leave certain circles. But yeah, I used to be like that as well. Now I just have a bunch. I actually am paying for a service, and it works pretty well. I have an issue with this called Cloaked, and they let you generate phone numbers and email addresses that are aliases, and it's a password manager as well, so you don't have to go out there and buy tons of SIM cards. They do link back to VoIP numbers though, which can be a huge issue, but I have had success regenerating phone numbers within a block over time, and some of those may not be recognized as a VoIP number. And if you guys don't understand what I mean by that, because Chris was like, "Oh, this is great," and then told him that he lost all interest in it. If you have a number that's recognized as a virtual number or a VoIP number, most social media services, almost all of them, won't let you register on that website. Telegram is a big one.
Yeah.
WhatsApp. You have to have a number that's issued by a telecommunications service like Verizon, Vodafone.
Yeah. So no pick your own number on this. Which does ruin it for me because I like picking my own number and having a catalog of phone numbers that I use to sometimes just text myself.
Yeah, those when you have dissociative identity disorder, sometimes you need to talk to yourself. But those are great proxies. So if you're having an issue somewhere getting to these websites, those are great social media proxies. There was one that was up for a while. So when TikTok was banned last year in the United States for what was it, like 3 weeks or something like that, you couldn't get to it. There was a proxy that came up on the dark web called StickTalk. And I had that link, and it actually worked really, really well. And I would try to go into it a couple of weeks ago, and it was down. So there are those. And then, as far as other social media proxies and dark web social media, Chans are on there as well. That you can go to. Again, that's a whole episode of itself, talking about Chan culture and conspiracy theories and everything. But there are dark web Chans as well.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's also a bunch of other ones. Like if there's a social media for it, there's probably something you can get to on the dark web that either mirrors it or looks the same, but it's its own entity.
Yeah, 100%. Now, something that was the talk of the town, especially last year when it came to breaches, is ransomware.
Ooh.
Right. So one of the questions that I get a lot when it comes to understanding ransomware and breaches is, number one, what's the difference between those? Two,
I'm gonna lock your stuff down, and you owe me money to get it back.
Two, where can we find these ransomware and breaches? And then
on Tim's external hard drive.
and then lastly, is it illegal to download? Which is the question that I always focus on as well.
Is it illegal to download ransomware or to download breach data?
From my perspective, it's not illegal to download either.
Okay.
Because if you download the ransomware and don't run it, then it's just code sitting on your computer.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah,
fair.
and if you download a breach, since I found it and it was publicly available,
Then it's PAI, right?
I'm in the clear. And there is an issue.
As long as you're not doing bad things with that data afterwards. If you're using it in a report, fine.
Yeah, and so if you decide to use anyone else's information to potentially steal their identity or access their accounts, and again, this depends on your authorities and also where you live at, that is an illegal act. So for
But
my
just pulling it down and having it, you're good to go.
Yeah, as long as it's sitting there. And I mean, like, if you want to, if you have a virtual machine, you can run. This is what researchers do all the time. They'll download a sample of the ransomware code and they'll run it on a virtual machine to see what files are locked to see if they can recover anything from it. Because what you have to do is you have to have that private key to decrypt the contents so you can get that information back on whatever computer it's located on. Because most ransomware, it doesn't choose to, and again, this is in the name, right? It doesn't choose to change how your computer, your hardware works. So it doesn't like speed up your fan on the computer. It doesn't cause your GPU or CPU to overclock. It doesn't cause, but what it does is it goes after all the contents in your storage devices.
And it encrypts your data.
Yeah, and then again, the name is in there, like ransom. You have to then pay an organization, an entity, so much money, usually now cryptocurrency, and then they will walk you through how to unlock it. And this is one of the things I found out. There's a lot of the hacks that happen towards the software called MoveIt. It was a file exchange software. The exploit was discovered by a ransomware group called CLOP, CL0P. It's not an O, it's a 0. And they will actually assist you in penetration testing as well.
Oh,
So they'll
nice.
say, hey, not only will we give you your contents back and delete all that information from our system so no one can have it, we will also walk you through how we did this
So you
hack. So they offer penetration testing services too.
I mean, that's a good way to show that they're vulnerable.
Yes. And then also develop a reputation within the community to become, legitimate later on. I thought
Yeah.
about that as well. Um,
Interesting.
but yeah, so one of the biggest differences between ransomware and breaches is ransomware is usually done as a service. So someone developed an exploit and then they have someone else run it like an affiliate. This is something that Killnet, Alfie, Black Cat, a lot of these ransomware groups develop these kits and then have someone else run it. And then the initial ransomware creator gets a portion of the proceeds, something like 30%, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, the person who runs the payload for the ransomware on whatever system they're trying to hit, they're taking all the initial risk because they didn't create it, someone else did. And then if it works, sometimes it can be an automatic process where 30% is automatically sent to someone else if the ransom's paid. And just from my perspective, knowing how extortion works, do not immediately try to pay a ransom to get all your data back. It's always best to work with a government agency because they are now helping and assisting organizations to decrypt data. For example, I think it was CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency for the United States. They actually have certain decryption kits for software available. So if for some reason it gets encrypted, don't immediately try to pay a ransom and get your data back. CISA, the FBI can probably help you out. Then, now if you guys want to find this stuff, ransomware and breaches. Number one, do be cautious when you go to these websites and what information you're providing to them. Okay. Then secondly, if you want to download this content, never do it on your personal drive.
No,
Ever.
no.
And even on
No.
any drive that you own, never download it there first. Always do it in a virtual machine. And if you guys are wondering, well, Tim, like you keep telling us to scan for viruses when we download files, how do we do that? Well, there are two very popular ways to do it. If you're on Linux, there are multiple free antivirus software that you can use in order to scan contents. One of the ones I've used in the past, AppArmor, is installed on Ubuntu. It has a scanning feature to detect that automatically. And then another one is ClamAV. ClamAV is something that I've used in the past as well. It's funny because the command to run a scan of a directory or a file is ClamScan. So I just love they have that in there, and that's free. And then if you're on Windows, say you're running a VM inside Windows, the most popular one to use, period, is Malwarebytes. So you just go to Malwarebytes, download it. They do have a premium tier that you'll probably have to pay for if you do this over and over again, that you may want to pay for, but you don't have to. You're not required. And Malwarebytes has been around for years. But I will say, if you want to protect yourself, those are virus scanning software, by the way. They aren't true antiviruses where it will go through and assist you in removing. Sometimes you do have to pay for that, but it's just virus scanning. However,
if you're doing it in a VM, you're good to go.
yeah,
theoretically,
yeah,
theoretically,
if that file includes an exploit for a VM escape, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
But those are really, really rare to find those. And when the community does, that becomes a CVS score of like 9.5 or above, and that CV is automatically listed for everybody to know. So common vulnerabilities and exposures, if you haven't heard of that, common vulnerability score for CVS. But usually those are discovered, so and then they let everybody know about it. But you can go to the website. So Ransomware, they have blogs where you can go download all these files and check them out. And yes, there could be an issue if you're downloading content that's classified in the United States or classified in other governments, because having that could constitute, a violation of a federal crime.
So there's been a Supreme Court case in the U.S. That if an individual who's non-cleared, has never signed an NDA, they come across classified information and they have possession of it, so like a journalist or something like that, whether it was given to them or not, they're allowed to have that information because they've never signed a contract with the United States government to prevent the release of that information.
Good. Awesome to know. And again,
now that may change.
So,
but that's where it's at right
as
now.
a huge disclaimer for that, both Chris and I are OSINT practitioners, and the things that we say on the show come from best practices. So please don't accept any legal advice from us.
No, certainly not.
Contact an attorney.
Yeah.
Or a legal person.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not saying, oh, you found this classified information that's yours to keep. That's not what I'm saying. But there has been at least one case that went to the Supreme Court where, and I wish I could remember the case name, but where they went, hey, you came into possession of this not through any illegal or illicit means. It was provided to you as a journalist. You're allowed to have that information and publish it.
Now, to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Chris.
You're welcome.
But for ransomware, they have their blogs. And then for breaches, say like a company had some of its personal employees' information exposed, or, their customers' data exposed. Again, you are allowed to view that and download it. According to your local and state jurisdictions, whatever those may be. But using that is a different story. And there are tons of forums out there for these. One of the most popular ones that was around, and now I got to check to see if I can find the new URL when it ever does come up, is called Breach Forums. Really, really popular one.
Yeah, that one was
been
huge.
around for years. So since at least 2021 and 2022, after Raid Forums went down. Been around for about 3 or 4 years now. Now, finally, one of the things I did want to talk about on this episode, because everybody always says, like, hey, Tim, like, how do we communicate with each other in an encrypted manner, or how can we be private? What's the best way to do that?
Hey, Tim, how do we communicate with each other in an encrypted manner or be private? What's the best way to do that?
So there actually are email exchanges on the dark web. I don't trust those because you don't know who's hosting the servers. And to a certain extent, that's true of all the content you have out there. But one of my favorite ways to communicate with people is through the use of internet relay chat. So,
yeah.
Back in the 90s, right, and 80s, and to a certain extent the 70s, the primary way for people to communicate with each other, email came first, so you can send messages, and there were forums, so you could post a public message, and then people wanted instantaneous chat, so you could immediately type a message
Craziness.
in. Yeah, so
crazy idea.
Type a message in and instantly get people talking to you. That's where Internet Relay Chat comes from. Well, there are still servers out there that are up that you can use for all that. You're gonna love these words. AIM, right?
Dude,
AOL Instant Messenger.
Dude, I was on there every
Yeah.
day, man.
MSN Messenger, Yahoo Messenger. But even before those, that's when IRC servers came online. And all it is, honestly, it's just a port that's open on a website, and that content is allowed to be on there, so you can just communicate with each other. Now, there's two types of protocols. There's IRC protocol, and then there's XMPP protocol. So
Jabber.
yeah, exactly. So XMPP stands for Extensible Messaging and Presence Protocol, and it's a way to communicate in an encrypted fashion. So there are plugins you can use. One of the most popular that everyone always touts, even if you go to the Darknet Market Bible, which we might get into in a future episode if we ever
that'll be
talk
fun.
about dark web marketplaces. It says use off the record OTR or OMIMO messaging for that. And I don't remember what OMIMO means, but we'll get into it in a future episode if we talk about it. That's a way to encrypt chats end-to-end encrypted for users that are on these servers that allow that content.
And these are decentralized or client server.
No, they're not decentralized. It's centralized. It's all running off one server.
The XMPP?
Mhm.
Is
Yep.
it?
Yeah, because it's a URL that you go to.
Interesting.
Yeah. But again, since it's end-to-end encrypted, even the server, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Because you're maintaining the private keys and public keys at both ends, they can't read your messages because it's going to be encrypted going through their server. But some popular ones to use one of the ones that I love to use, especially for training to get people familiar with the culture of the dark web, is OFTC. And if you want to check out their website, it's oftc.net, and it stands for the Open and Free Technology Community. So one of the best ones because it doesn't require any protocols. You don't have to register to use it. They even have an IRC server that you can just log in at the very top. You just put in the nickname, something like, I don't know, Bobby Hill, and then you put in what channel you want to connect to, and then you just go to and you create your own channel right from there. But for the next two that I've used, and they're still really popular, Alex Institute, which is a organization dedicated to internet privacy, internet freedom, essentially. They run a server as well, but you have to register for it, and that's where things get kind of finicky because this is something that
I hate registering for stuff when I'm trying to be anonymous, dude.
Well, this actually helps you be more anonymous because it's encrypting your traffic when it goes somewhere. It's just that you're registering a username on their server that you don't have to keep forever. Of course, if you want to have a reputation and standing within a community, you probably want to keep the same moniker across multiple things. But Calyx runs their own IRC server. And another one that I've used is Creep. Creep.im.
All right, what are you doing on Creep, man? Creep.
Yeah.
Little TLC.
Yeah. Don't go chasing waterfalls. All right. Oh man, bringing it back. We got to watch. What's it called again? With Will Ferrell and Marky Mark.
The other guys.
Now I'm gonna watch that after this podcast while we're editing this episode. But those are some servers that I like to use. And if you're familiar with IRC at all, then you could probably know how to get to these and go there. But if you want to go to OFTC, just download an IRC client. Some popular ones that I like to use, Pigeon is always touted as a pretty good one. There's some vulnerabilities associated with it now, but it's still installed on certain dark web operating systems, such as Tails. Tails is a dark web operating system that you can use, and it's a live OS that you can boot from an external drive. Or you can use, I've used HexChat before, and Merc. Merc's been around forever for that as well. Yeah. But, so for dark web stuff, Chris, that's,
I mean, that's, we put out a lot of information.
you feel like it was a lot?
We need to add some disclaimers. Don't follow us for legal advice. That's not what we do. That's not what we offer.
Yeah. Also, we don't, if you go to any of this content, understand that we're not sponsoring the content that appears on these websites.
You're going there on your own volition.
Yeah, and nor are we vouching for the content that you're going to see is good content as well. Because the same is true when it comes to just traditional internet investigations. The only reason why the disclaimers happen more and more for dark web content is because since it carries that obfuscated anonymous nature, that goes hand in hand with the medium.
There's
There's a
freedom, right? You
yeah.
can say whatever you want because no
Yeah.
one knows who you are, man.
Yeah, there's just a higher proportion, higher likelihood for that content to be on there that you can see. But I mean, we were talking about this the other day. Maybe I don't think I was talking to you, but it was someone else. Was, when I first started investigating ISIS in 2013, 2014, I've even said this on the podcast before, was they had Twitter and
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were all over it.
yeah, and
So here's the thing that drove me nuts.
and
about
they
that.
were defaced, and like when again hackers were defacing this with pornography. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about that
Yeah.
the other day. The thing with ISIS on Twitter is, Twitter at the time, and I mean, I understand what they were doing. They worked really hard to shut down those Twitter profiles for the ISIS members. What bothers me is that they could have put that stuff in a bucket so ISIS didn't know that their stuff wasn't being released, and then that would have enabled certain agencies to gain a better essay on what's going on with ISIS from an open faces for public standpoint. And it bothered me that that never occurred.
Just in general about Twitter and the changes that have been happening over the last few years, it's become increasingly more difficult just to track any content on there anymore
Yeah.
or access it.
So
I don't enjoy it.
So join us on our new website, StarWarsWeb2.net.
I am not going to create any more websites anytime soon. That was 2 days of my life just like grinding, even
Yes.
though I was using WordPress to get everything just right, because I'm horrible at designing. I got to be honest. Like, while I have creative tendencies, but I don't have, I guess, a creative green thumb, if you will. So having ideas up in my brains, right? It doesn't translate to me putting things on paper or things on a computer.
Tim and I get into many arguments where all it is him trying to be creative and me helping him get his ideas out. But he needs combativeness to get there.
Yeah, we do have more than a couple where if people looked at us the way that we talk to each other, they're like, dude, why do they even spend any time with each other? They get so upset, when in reality, it's just Chris knows that I'm passionate and really stubborn about certain things, and he's trying to make me potentially see an alternate view, which is his view, by the way, but he's not trying to force it down my throat. So it's really nice that he takes a more neutral approach towards dealing with me.
I'm not nearly in my words and actions, I'm not nearly as passionate as Tim is. Like, we carry the same passion for a lot of this stuff, but he's much more boisterous about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. Oh, dude. So interesting thing we discovered. So today, right before
MP, dude.
Yeah, right before the podcast started, I was sitting here and I was writing out a check, and while I'd always thought about this when I saw it, it's just something you kind of take for granted because it's been part of your everyday life. Well, I know there's probably some people out there that have never written a check.
Never seen one, man.
Yeah, so but I was sitting there and I was writing it out, and I go, "Hey Chris, what does this MP mean right here?" And instantly that was something Chris didn't know, which is why I love bringing this stuff up with him.
Yeah.
Started looking it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
So-
security features on checks, by the way.
Well, so I mean, there's a lot of security features on everything that goes with financial
Yeah.
transactions. But checks are the hardest things to put security features on because they're a one and done sort of thing. So that little MP that you see next to the signature line stands for micro printing. And what we learned is that signature line is not a line at all. It's actually words.
Yeah, so we took out our phones and like zoomed in as far as we could. And unfortunately, we don't have the granular level detail to read those. But yeah, you can make out individual letters and words on there. It's so cool.
Yeah, so Tim had asked me what that was, and then he left the room, and he came back into the room, and he just sees me with my phone over his
dude.
check.
I was
He's like, "What are you doing?"
I was like, at least cover up my account number if you're going to take a picture.
But yeah, that's what I was. I was zooming in, and like once you know that that's there, you can actually look at it and recognize that it's words and not a line. But it was just really interesting and fascinating.
Discovering something new every single day is one of the things I love to do because like complacency, I believe, is a disease when it comes to online investigators and analysts, because you become so comfortable within an environment, you just assume everything's going to continue happening the way it has. Good example of this, right? My wife discovered a new area in Kabul while she was deployed. Messaged me and asked me about it. Guess what it's called?
Chinatown.
Oh yeah, there's a
Eh,
Chinatown everywhere, man.
Yeah. So again, when I was there, because I was physically in Kabul, there was no like quote unquote Chinatown. However, now after the Taliban took over, there have been more Chinese immigrants coming into Afghanistan and making a presence in Kabul. And I was like, you are outside your mind. I was like, what do you mean? And then I discovered that. I was like, oh, I learned something new every single day. And
Chinatown.
at that point, right, it had been a couple of years since I
So
had conducted
that's-
any
yeah.
analysis on Afghanistan.
Yeah, there's a Chinatown in places in countries that hate China.
Just accepting these people's presence, but those people,
Yeah.
we don't want to talk about those
Yeah.
people.
Oddly enough, they all smell the same. Every Chinatown.
Um,
That's not bad. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying
Well,
they all smell the same, man.
I mean, I think a lot of communities I come from in the South, they smell the
Well,
same as well
that's
because
true.
they use
Well,
Crisco.
I mean, if you got a paper mill, every community around there, man.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. And also, we just set up a donations page on our website. It's just cryptocurrency at this point. So if you ever want to support the podcast, we accept cryptocurrency. Right now, we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero on there. And we will be setting up other ones as well in the near future. But please, if you like this video, consider subscribing. Leave a comment if you want to. And this was the Ocean Output, hosted by Chris and Tim.
Tim and Chris.